Greetings all and welcome back to Math in Anger. This is episode 41 and we are looking at what is the least common multiple. Well, first off, I'd like to bring your attention back to this triangle and where I explained to you what a factor is, what a multiple is. Please, guys, if you don't know where this comes from, go back to episode 37. Again, please follow these episodes one at a time in sequence. Otherwise, you're not going to understand what I'm about to explain here. Okay, to the rest of us who have done that already, I'd like to point something out to you. Take a look at this. This is the multiplication table for 4, 6, and 8. And all of these are multiples of 4. All of these are multiples of 6, and all of these are multiples of 8. All right? So what is a common multiple? Well, take a look at this. Both 4 and 6 have 12 as a multiple. Are there more? Yes, there are. Take a look at this. 24. And 36. So 12, 24, and 36 are multiples of both 4 and 6. And here as well, 4, 6, and 8, they do have a common multiple. It's 24. So let's take a look at all these multiples for 4 and 6. You've got 12. And what was the next one? It was 24. And then we had 36, right? So which one of these is the least common multiple? It is the multiple, it's the common multiple that is the smallest, right? And if you take 4, 6, and 8, then the least common multiple becomes 24 for all three those values, right? Now you know what a least common multiple is. And what do we use this for? What's so important about a least common multiple? Well, if you took a look at the previous episode, you will know that we use the greatest common factor in order to write fractions in a more in a simple way. The problem is sometimes you don't have a greatest common factor. Then you have to resort to using the least common multiple in order to combine fractions. Take a look at something like 1 over 2 plus 2 over 3. Right? So, something I want to point out to you is there is always at least one common multiple, not necessarily the least common multiple, but there's always at least one common multiple with fractions when you multiply your additives together. So in this case, it's 2 times 3 equals 6. You see, 6 is a common multiple of both 3 and 2. So you can go and rewrite these fractions as, in this case, it will be 3 over 6 plus 4 over 6, right? And that gives us 7 over 6, which is 1 1/6. In this, we used a common multiple. It also happens to be the least common multiple for half and 2/3. And we went and rewrote it as a mixed number. There we have our improper fraction. That's what we use the least common multiple for. Right. But let's take a little bit of a more complicated example. Let's take a look at something like, let's try 2/5 and 6/8. Right? So the first thing we do is we go and take a look at our prime factorization for 5 and 8. 5 is already a prime number, so that the prime factorization for 5 is 5. The prime factorization for 8 is 2. 2. There you go. So for 8 it would be 2 times 2 times 2. That's our prime factorization for 4 and 8. But with the least common multiple, we do not eliminate any of our prime factors. We use all of them. And in this case, we know that our prime factors are 2 and 5. And we go and write them the most amount of times that they appear in our factorizations. So here 2 appears 3 times, 5 appears once, we do the multiplication, and this gives us, it's 8 times 5, that is 40. So now we can go and rewrite this fraction as, okay, so 2 over 5, that would be in balance with, well, 40 times 8 is 5, so that is times 8. What is 2 times 8? It is 16. 8 times 5 is 40. What is 6 times 5? That is 30. And then we can do our addition here, and we end up with 46 over 40, which is equal to 1 and 6/40. And both of those are divisible by 2, so we can simplify that further to 3 and that. So it's 1 and 3/20. That is what we use the least common multiple for. Right? But let me do one more example and give you the steps in written form so that you can write them down and look at what it is that we are doing. Let's do this here. Here we go. Right. So let's take a look. These are the steps, right? And let's take a look at actually following these steps. Let's take a look at 2/6 and 3/14. Right, the first thing we do is our prime factorization. For 6, that is 2 and 3. So our prime factorization for 6 is 2 and 3. Our prime factorization for 14 is 2 and 7. Right? So now we go and write our prime factors. It's 2, 3, and 7. We did our prime factorization. We wrote our prime factors down, and we wrote them down as many times as they appear the most amount of times. In both of these, 2 appears only once, 3 appears only once, 7 appears only once. If any of these appeared more times, we would write it down as many times as it appeared, and then we go and do our multiplication, and that gives us 42. So now we can go and rewrite these fractions. 6/42, that is twice, that is 14 42s. And here it would be 3 times 6, that is 9 42s. And that gives us a total of 23 42s. Right? And that is how we use our least common multiple. Make a screenshot of these steps. Follow these steps. This is what we use least common multiple for. Again, people, please follow these episodes in sequence. Because if you did, you will not struggle with this. You will understand where it comes from, why it exists, and why we have it, what we use it for. Right. This then was Math in Anger, episode 41. I will see you in the next one. Ciao.